Same thing. A transit is not going to cause something to happen to somebody, but you can see underlying things with transits. And you can definitely use transits to make predictions if you already know what's going on. But just because you predict something or see the potential for something does not necessarily mean that it's going to manifest in that exact way, because everything is a spectrum. So even from that example that I gave in the last video, somebody lost their job with Saturn transiting the 10th house. In a different world, Saturn transiting the 10th house could give that same person a promotion if they were doing what they were supposed to do, because Saturn represents loss, but Saturn also represents hard work and authority. So that could indicate Saturn transiting your 10th house. If you have been working hard and doing what you're supposed to do, that could indicate Saturn being your hard work paying off. So even in the instance of like you literally knew how or when your dad was going to pass, there would have probably been something underlying that you already knew about your father to make you look at the astrology and think like, oh, he's going to pass at this time. Like, for example, if your dad is sick and you have Saturn or Pluto transiting your 4th house, which represents your family or specifically your father, you could maybe gauge like, shit, my dad might die, my dad might pass away, because there could be things that indicate that. But again, if your father was not sick, or if you didn't already know that there was something going on with your dad that made you think that he was probably going to pass, and then astrology confirmed that, that's what happened. But again, it wasn't the transit making your dad die. Your dad was already sick. Now, again, I don't know if that's specifically what that was, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. Like, your dad had something going on and you seen the transit that kind of confirmed what you thought was going to happen. But again, it wasn't the transit making that thing happen. And if you know astrology and know what's going on, you can kind of use it to gauge and predict things. But I don't predict death, because there are some things, like, again, in an instance, if you know somebody is sick and you see some transits that can indicate death, okay, maybe. But if I were to, like, I get people asking like, oh, I have planets transiting my 8th house, does that mean that I'm going to die? No. The 8th house is death. So people think if there's activity in the 8th house that means that they're going to die or somebody else is going to die. But like, the 8th house is not just death. Saturn is not just death. Pluto is not just death. There are other factors and other things that are also tied into that as well too. So I don't even predict death. You can definitely look in a chart after somebody dies and see that astrology confirms that they died, and even specifically how they died. But yeah, predicting death is like a no-no in astrology.